You don't understand what you've done! You've doomed the world!
Welcome back to another Creature Commandos breakdown, which episode 3. We're going to be breaking down the episode, of course, talking about those characters that were introduced and some of the comic origins for the mysterious characters that were in the background. So with that, let's jump into it with G.I. Robot's backstory, because it starts off with him being ambushed with his squad, Easy Company, by a bunch of Nazi attackers, and then he just obliterates them all. Like, goddamn, they showed how much of a savage G.I. Robot is in this. If you're a Nazi, boom, you get absolutely obliterated. Especially showing that his actual AI system isn't perfect, makes you understand why he was thrown in prison. Because when they first bring him on like a talk show to talk to him, he asks for identification because he's not sure if anyone's actually a Nazi, and he's ready to kill a bunch of people. Really showing that when they programmed this robot and gave him an AI, they didn't do a very good job at letting him distinguish what was what outside of the war. Which makes sense because they probably weren't thinking of that. And they definitely didn't do a good job at securing this piece of artificial intelligence that's extremely dangerous, because then it gets in the hands of some random dude. But before we get there, it was actually really interesting to see how Dr. Magnus was calling him an AI instead of a robot, saying he didn't like the term robot, and sending up Dr. Magnus taking him. Because Magnus used G.I. Robot to help him create other things. Because in the comics, Dr. Magnus is a brilliant engineer, just like in this, and he used the responsometer to bring metal to life, resulting in the Metal Men. He is the creators of the Metal Men, which I think in this moment, after we find out that G.I. Robot has been passed around from scientist to scientist until he got left for nothing, Dr. Magnus might have already created the Metal Men, meaning the Metal Men are in the DCEU. But we also find out what G.I. Robot wants. He wants to reunite with his boys, Easy Company, and kill Nazis with them again. And Easy Company is a comic book thing. They were a legendary US Army infantry unit which fought in the European theater of World War II. The Easy Company is filled with Sergeant Frank Rock, Bulldozer, Little Sure Shot, Canary, Wildman, Four Eyes, and Bogman, who are all part of Easy Company in the comics. When I first heard Bogman and Canary, I thought Canary might have been a reference to Black Canary, but that's not the case. He is a character from the comics that is part of the group. And then Bogman, he is part of the group. And I also looked up the name, and there is also a Bogman in Creature Commandos. So it's not the same Bogman, but it is cool to see that there's a Bogman in Creature Commandos and that there's a Bogman in Easy Company. But we might actually see all these characters in live action, especially with G.I. Robot appearing in his first live action appearance as well in a Sergeant Frank Rock movie, because that is actually greenlit. They're going to be making a Sergeant Frank Rock movie, so it makes sense that all these characters appear, especially if this took place in World War II. Sergeant Frank Rock is going to be in World War II, which means we'll probably see G.I. Robot in his prime fighting Nazis, which could be just a cool movie. Doesn't have to be super comic booky, but it seems like it'd be a cool thing just to watch this kind of period piece in World War II. So now as we go forward, we'll talk more about the backstory in a bit, because it starts to interconnect with the present day stuff. We have Cersei leaving the Brian and Nina at the castle. I'm surprised Cersei just didn't kill them. Like, she left them there for a trap so that they could get the Creature Commandos away from the castle, but she didn't kill them, which is very suspicious. It means that something else is going on here, because she could have easily killed them, taken out their trackers, and left them in that place. But instead, they put Nina in a bathtub with water so she wouldn't die, and they left Bride tied up. So obviously, Cersei has something else up her sleeves. Even after she got her ass beaten in this episode, there is something else going on, especially from the trailer talking about how there's this impending doom coming with the world ending. Maybe Cersei is actually the good guy, like I said before. Maybe there's something else going on here where she doesn't want to kill the Creature Commandos because she might actually need their help in stopping the bigger bad. But I thought it was really nice having this touching moment with G.I. Robot and Nina where he carries the bathtub and helps her out. It's just like this very, obviously falling in love kind of story where the fish girl falls in love with the robot with no heart who's kind of starting to care about people. It's kind of a nice little story until he ultimately gets blown up. But, I feel like he'll come back. And I love how when the prince is getting attacked, literally just everyone is getting obliterated. You would think that a castle with flying suits of armor would be just regular guns. But nope, they're getting mowed down. And it's just not working out well for them. Except when the Creature Commandos show up and they just start fucking shit up. They just obliterate everyone around them. Dr. Phosphorus literally burns a guy alive after sticking his arm through him. And it's just awesome to watch these monsters tear up some shit. Now, this is when we start getting into the part when it's half backstory and half present day, where we have G.I. Robot getting passed around from scientist to scientist, and ending up in the hands of collectors, which was just a random guy named Sam Fitzgerald, who's actually voiced by Michael Rooker. So Michael Rooker made an appearance in this as well. And Sam here just collects military stuff. And I thought it was gonna be like a nice, touching story where G.I. Robot finds a home, he learns to start loving people, because that's what it seemed like. This guy was taking care of him, he didn't want him to rust, and then all of a sudden, this guy brings him to a Nazi rally. And these guys are just idiots. They got themselves killed. They brought a World War II Nazi killing robot to their Nazi meeting. And then he just absolutely mows them all down. But this ends up getting him thrown in prison. I'm like, okay, you know, he didn't do a terrible thing. Yeah, he did murder some people. It's not like he wasn't following his prime directive that he was programmed to do. So technically he was doing his job. And before he gets thrown in prison, we get the kind of going back and forth of him killing Nazis, but also killing the sons of Themyscira, as Rick Flag Sr. calls them Nazis, and he just obliterates all of them. It was an awesome scene of watching him hover up with hover rockets and just absolutely destroy everything around him. Well, until Cersei blows him up. But it was a really awesome scene. I love the music going back and forth between the scene, because it felt so James Gunn that it felt so like happy and going with just murder going on. Great scene, gotta love it. He gets thrown in jail, and after he gets thrown in jail, we get to actually see a bunch of villains. We get to see the Shaggy Man, and the Shaggy Man is a monster that was created by Professor Ivo and was one of the toughest monsters for the Justice League to ever face. And that happened in the comics after 2011. However, before 2011, Shaggy Man was created by Andrew Zagarian. Then we had Fisherman, which Fisherman is an enemy of Aquaman, who was drafted into the Suicide Squad in recent comics. However, there's also a Fisherman that was from back in the 60s, but he was erased because of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Different costume. The costume matches the one that's from the Suicide Squad, but I thought that was a cool little nod, because I'm like, there's no way this character does not exist before the recent years. Then we got Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, who, if you watched Doom Patrol, would remember him because he also appeared in Doom Patrol, so we're getting him back again. Somehow this character is getting a bunch of appearances, but it's kind of funny because you look at this character who is a Doom Patrol villain. The reason he got his powers is because he fell into a vat of mysterious amino acid, which gave him powers to transform any part of his body into a form of an animal, a vegetable, or a mineral. That's why he's kind of half plant, half human, half dinosaur. Very odd, very weird, very obscure. Makes sense for James Gunn. Then we got Crimson Centipede, which he was created by the god of Mars to go and destroy Wonder Woman. So cool little reference here. We got a Justice League villain, we have an Aquaman villain, we have a Doom Patrol villain, and a Wonder Woman villain. So already setting up some of the weirder, obscure villains that already exist in the DCU, and they've just been around. Awesome to see. And also, when you look at that, if we have those characters there, that means their counterpart enemies they go against, which would be our heroes, are also there. So very excited to see what's come from this DCU, because they keep adding so much stuff. So now back to him being blown up. It's very unfortunate to see that happen, but it does make me feel like he might get brought back, especially when he has that little touching moment with Nina at the end, because he is a robot, he is AI. I feel like they could do something with that. And then in the end, we get Cersei just getting absolutely fucked up by Weasel and Dr. Phosphorus, which was an awesome scene. I wasn't expecting her to be going after the princess and then getting taken down to the ground by Weasel of all characters. Just Weasel slashing and ripping her apart. I was not expecting that. And that monster goes ham. And then Dr. Phosphorus just melting her face. Yeah, you can really see the horror on Rick Flag Sr.'s face as he's watching these monsters just go ham on this woman. And it makes sense why Bride's like, well, you wanted a team of monsters, there's your monsters, because that's what they are. They're monsters. And it makes me feel like the Bride might be actually more human than these other monsters, where yeah, she still messes shit up and she still attacks everyone and she's still brutal, but she's more of a human heart because she's more of a humanoid creature than the rest of them. Except maybe Nina. Nina is also human, and you can see that more caring soul in her, where she's not really a monster. She's just kind of part of the team, and we haven't really figured out why she's there yet. Overall, though, great episode. Love Creature Commandos so far. It definitely feels very James Gunn, and there's a lot of cool things that have happened during it so far, and I love how it's just setting the baseline for the DCU and just the weird creatures we're going to be getting, the weird obscure villains, like putting them all there to really make it feel like a comic universe, because that's what comic universes are. We get those weird, we get those obscure villains and heroes, and it's nice to finally see that, rather than just getting the same heroes and villains every single goddamn movie. So I am glad we're getting something different, and it's changing up this universe for the better. So let me know. What do you think of this episode? Is there anything else you noticed that I didn't? And let's talk about in the comments. Any Easter eggs, any references? I'm all ears, and I love to find out stuff that I might have missed that you guys noticed as well. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot, and you get to stay up to date with all my DC breakdowns. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next week when we watch another episode of Creature Commandos.